Good.
No, again, this is for your approval or denial. I do think they have a right to get an answer one way or the other, but a month doesn't seem like, such a length of time that, it's prohibiting them from, moving forward and getting the answer that they should get from this. So I would ask them if they would agree to that. Unless they want to vote on this today, then that would be up to the council.
I mean, I don't want to preclude you from making money.
No, so it's not.
We also have to keep in mind the residents, they were there first, right?
Absolutely.
So we have an obligation to make sure that the residents are happy with this development.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's guaranteed an island to live on and not have anything around it when you live in a big city like we do, and we understand that also. But we do want to minimize the impact on the neighborhoods. And so if we could, perhaps, if you would be amenable to that.
The only thing is that I'm just the developer at the end of the day.
Right.
So Mr. Car Wash is a publicly traded company, and I don't think they would agree to anything like that. So if that was part of it, they might just pull the whole development.
Okay, all right.
That's, and I'm not being threatened, that's what I've been told.
Okay, all right, that's fine. That's fine. That gives me the answer, then I know what we're dealing with going forward. So that seals my answer. Thank you.
Any additional? Call the question. Mr. Rogency?
No.
Okay. Point of order. You made the motion.
Oh, sorry.
You can't.
Thank you. Withdraw my motion.
Is there a motion? Mr. Papandreou, you had a support.
I withdraw my support.
Okay. Motion? I need some motion.
Motion to deny.
Support.
Motion by Lafferty, support by Watts. Mr. Lafferty?
Yes to deny.
Mr. Watts?
Yes to deny.
Mr. Kabazinski?
No.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Papandreou?
Yes.
Ms. Rogency?
Yes.
Green votes no. Item failed 5-2. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item is 11B, public hearing, fiscal year 2023-2024, general fund budget, first reading.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak regarding this item? Hearing or seeing none, close the public hearing, turn the item over to council.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Does, refresh my memory, this requires 2 readings.
Right. This is just opening, really, our discussions.
And because the water is an ordinance, do we have to do a separate one for water?
Changes being made.
No changes being made. Still have to do an ordinance, though, for the annual. Then it was confusing me.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's got the motion?
Lafferty.
And support?
More.
Okay. Discussion? Mr. Lafferty?
Yes to a first reading.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Mr. Kabazinski?
Yes.
Ms. Rogency?
Yes.
Mr. Papandreou?
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passes 7-0. Next item.
Next item was tabled on April 25th, 2023, which was a public hearing, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving the demolition of a garage only at 24531 Antoinette, which is under the nuisance abatement program. Motion to remove from the table.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty to remove from the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Items removed from the table. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve with discussion.
Support.
Motion by Moore, support by Watts for discussion. Ms. Moore?
Thank you. I'm not sure if the petitioner's here. We received.
they're here.
Okay, here you go.
I was just looking for a 60-day extension.
60 days?
60 days. We're just waiting for an income tax check to come so we can buy the material to fix the garage.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you,
I
ma'am.
can't understand you.
We were just waiting for our income tax check to come so we can buy the materials to fix the garage.
Okay.
So I was just asking for a 60-day extension.
What's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Lizet, perhaps we asked at the last time if funds were available to do the repairs, and we were told that
They were sent to CDBG.
yes.
Mr. Lizet, do you have anything you can add to this?
Listen,
The permit was issued, they came after after it was tabled last time, they came, got a permit to repair it. But I went by for a field check today just to check on the progress. So nothing's been done yet, so I just,
I took some trees down and debris away from the area.
trees,
There's debris down in the back of the garage because there was a big tree that was kind of messing with the side of the wall. So we removed that and picked up the back debris that was behind the garage.
My only
And I also
problem,
cleaned on the inside of the garage. So I
Understood.
put temporary walls.
my only issue right now is waiting for money to come in so we can buy the materials to fix the garage.
I guess the question is, respectfully, the income tax refund check comes in, will that be adequate funds to do the entire garage? I don't want you to get halfway there and then you got to talk to Mr. Lezay again.
Right,
So is that going to be an adequate amount to do the whole garage?
yes.
Okay. What's the pleasure of council?
What does Mr. Lezay think?
no, the permit's been issued, so now the burden of proof of them is to fix it. Once we issue it.
How long's the
find
permit?
repair.
How long's the permit last?
180 days.
180
6
days.
months.
So 60 more is, we should be good.
July 11.
July 11th? July 11th?
Yeah,
So by July 11th, you'll have adequate progress made. So
yeah,
Mr. Lezay is going to come give us a glowing report.
okay.
Wonderful.
Make a motion to table to date certain of July 11th, 23.
Support Lafferty.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? See you in July.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next item.
Next item is 12A, Water Division Quarterly Report, First Quarter 2023. Motion to receive and file.
Support Lafferty.
Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have discussion, Mr. Watts?
It's okay.
Okay.
Ready?
12B, I guess.
Yeah. Next item is 12B, which is a resolution regarding RFPW 0840, the Employee Assistance Program. Motion to approve was discussion.
Support Lafferty.
12B. Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Discussion, Ms. Moore.
Yeah, as I explained, this came in very late today. It was 120-some pages of backup. I don't know why it wasn't sent last week. This is, again, one of these situations where we're getting something last minute and it goes into effect, and we certainly don't want our employees to be without this benefit. I think Mr. Green was on the
Yes.
RFP, so
So the Employee Assistance Program provides counseling for employees, and it went out for bid this year. And one of the important things they were looking at was to make sure we had a organization that was robust enough to handle the needs of police and fire who see things a little more critical than a regular employee or a non-public safety employee. So we went through the RFP process, and the reason it's coming to the table tonight so late, or the reason we have to do this now, we cannot wait, is that the current provider's contract expires April 30th. So on May 1st, the police and fire and all the employees in the city would not have an assistance program should they need it. And in the critical nature of today's environment, this is something we must address. So with that, any questions on the RFP committee met, we discussed the various proposals that came in, and we chose CARES of Southeast Michigan as the provider. They're the provider prior to the current one, and both police and fire and all the employees that we spoke to are pleased with the choice. Any discussion? Call the question. Ms. Moore?
yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Watts? Yes. Ms. Rogansey? Yes, indicates yes. Mr. Papandrea?
Yes.
Mr. Watts? Oh, Mr. Kabazinski, excuse me.
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passed 7-0. Thank you. Next item.
Next item is 12C, which is the Bangladeshi Festival that was discussed at audience. A motion to approve, motion to approve for discussion.
Support Lafferty.
Mr. President,
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Hang on. Motion by Moore, support by Lafferty. Mr. Papandreou.
I think the proper motion would be to refer it to the mayor's office. I've received some text messages. There are a number of Bangladeshi organizations. We want them all happy. We'd like them all to meet with the mayor, pick a date, so we can have a wonderful, large Bangladeshi festival. So I would refer it, rather than to approve a specific program, I would suggest we send it to the mayor's office, let them meet with everybody, and everybody agree on everything.
Mr. President.
Mr. Lafferty, then Ms. Moore.
Yep.
Thank you. I respect the opinion of the councilman, but the city is not in the business of picking and choosing or telling another group how to run their event. That's not within the purview. We respect everybody, and if somebody wants to hold an event in front of City Hall, and that is a viable venue for someone to have a festival, party, whatever the event might be, that is their right to do so. They shouldn't be governed and told how to have it. What's next? We tell them that they're not allowed to have a certain type of food or a certain type of music? No, you either can use the property or you can't. There is no gray area here. What these gentlemen were talking about sounded like a potential civil lawsuit against the city. We're not in that business. We don't tell people you can't do something because of your race, your origin, your ethnic heritage. That is not what we do. And as far as I'm concerned, we should be making a motion to override the decision of the Parks and Recreation Department and allowing that to go through.
Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
Yes, I think this is probably a federal issue. And can we just ban an ethnic festival? I don't like the sounds of that, and I don't think we can do that legally. And somebody needs to be trained, and we're coming right back again to the need for the DEI commission that's not been published yet, that maybe people in the city don't know how they should be responding and treating our diverse population. And I don't think that we should be forcing people to meet with other groups that are not part of their group. If I want to have a meeting of the women of Warren, nobody can tell me I have to bring in every other group of women in Warren in the city. You know, we all have different chapters of organizations. There's a Kiwanis Club in Warren and one in Sterling Heights and one in Shelby. We don't have to put them all together. And if you choose to have your celebration with your group, that's your right. And I don't know what we can do. I don't know that we can override whatever the mayor did. Maybe we should send it to the city attorney's office and have them examine this, because I think this is a legal issue. It's a serious legal issue that maybe we send it to their attention. Maybe Mr. Schroeder has a better idea than I do.
Well, if I could address it first, please. In looking over the ordinances that we have, the city doesn't have an ordinance banning discrimination based on ethnicity. And that's what came across in the correspondence that you received, and that's deplorable. I would ask that someone make a motion, because I can't make motions, to have Mr. Schroeder review and come up with an ordinance, an anti-discrimination ordinance on utilization of city parks and city facilities based on ethnicity. We can't have that, as Ms. Moore said, as Ms. Lafferty said, and as we all, I'm sure, say up here, that we do have a very diverse city, and we do need to have everyone represented, but we can't have the utilization of our parks and any service within the city denied to someone based on ethnicity, as stated in the correspondence from Mr. Turcado.
I'll make that motion.
I hope that he misspoke himself. However, the fact that this has happened last year and again this year, and not discounting anything Mr. Papandreou said about bringing everyone all together.
I'll make that motion that you request.
Thank you, Mr. Papandreou. Is there a support?
Mr. President.
Support Lafferty.
Is there further discussion?
Yes. Mr. President. Yes.
We have a motion, and then Mr. Watts, and then Mr. Kaczynski.
Okay, so I echo all the comments. I'm not going to repeat all that. So I've had lengthy discussion with these fine gentlemen here, and here's my problem. Last year, they spent $20 or $30 or $40,000. I don't remember what the number was last year when this came to our attention afterwards, when there was nothing that could be done, and it was canceled on them, and they spent all that money, they couldn't get it back. And then this year, they went in, they signed a contract, and they gave a check, and then this came up. So I think all the facts need to be on the table. This is very, very unprofessional of whoever was involved in this. And I agree, we need to rectify this, we need to take care of it, and it's not up to us to bring everybody together or anything like that. If a group comes in and wants to have an event, and it can be held, and it's a proper event, what have you, then we should be allowing that, or, but not to this community. It's not right. So,
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Kabazinski.
Thank you. So when I first came to Michigan, when I was about 12 years old from Alabama, one of the things I found interesting was that the city of Detroit had a Freedom Festival, and part of the Freedom Festival was they had different ethnic groups that had a celebration of each individual culture that was in the metro area. Now the same thing is going to occur here in Warren, and I also think that should also be encouraged. I'm wondering why that hasn't happened before, because there is so much different cultural backgrounds here in the city of Warren, and if we are the third largest city, shouldn't we try to make that effort, that if that's not being done, or it's been scaled down dramatically in the city of Detroit, maybe we can pick up that ball, and maybe we can make ours a better festival here in the city of Warren, in which individuals would want to come here to the city of Warren and celebrate the ethnic festivals that we would have here. That would also be an economic driver for our businesses. So I fully endorse having a similar kind of Freedom Festival in which we would have every ethnical background have their own festival here in the city of Warren. And I think it would be financially and economically viable for our city to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kabazinski. Any additional? We have a motion by Papandrea. With the support.
Support by Lafferty.
By Lafferty. To send the ordinance request to Mr. Schroeder and to ask the administration to have a meeting with the community as well. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item.
Next item is 12D, the issue with the De La Salle baseballs. I would make a motion to send a letter over to De La Salle from the city council, giving them, that we've received complaints.
I'll support that with
And
discussion.
asking them to address
Yeah.
the baseballs, and that just would, it's not fair.
No, it's not.
Discussion,
Oh,
Mr.
you know
President.
what? How about if I make a motion that the council president meets with them?
And send a letter.
Yeah.
I've had meetings, I've met some before recently, so I'll rekindle that and get out and meet with them.
Okay.
In addition to sending a letter,
Okay.
if that's acceptable.
Support with discussion.
Motion by Moore, support by Watts. Discussion, Mr. Watts.
Yeah, I've talked to Mr. King many times. I've been over there, and it is amazing the damage that those balls have done. And I'm amazed that somebody hasn't been hit walking down the street, riding a bike down the street, whatever the case is. We have a lot of dog walkers in our neighborhood. And I went over there, he had a 5-gallon bucket, 2 5-gallon buckets full of baseballs. That's how bad it is. And I, too, met with the president over at De La Salle, and it's a simple solution. They just don't want to put that backdrop at the top, that overhang, I don't know what you call it.
There's no choice now.
Yeah, it has to be done. There's just way too much damage going on. And when it's affecting all the neighbors over there, my buddy lives on the next street over from that backs up to those houses, and he's getting balls in his
I think we know the
yard.
general counsel there, too, we can talk to.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Mr. Kabazinski.
I'm wondering, maybe it's not can't not be constructed, but I know over by Lincoln High School, to prevent that from happening, there's netting that goes all the way up and it's attached to the telephone poles.
There is a helmet too.
And it's supposed to prevent, now, I notice it's torn now by where the chain link fence is, so it doesn't really provide, but it does still provide some protection to where the baseball does go back onto the field sometimes. I'm not saying that it's 100%, but, you know, net hasn't been constructed or put up,
It
and
wasn't required during the construction.
so I'm wondering, is there something as an ordinance right now that requires, even for private schools or any baseball field, that kind of netting would be required at a baseball field to prevent that? Do we have an ordinance on the books?
No.
As far as the construction of the baseball field?
The general process, and Mr. Schroeder, correct me if I'm wrong, is we're going to have a conversation and ask them to do that. And if that does not occur, then we'll have to take stronger steps, not to the point of declaring it a nuisance, but some type of action that is going to force them to do it.
I'm just wondering, as a matter of construction in the future, or maybe we can make it right now, that because of these incidents, it would be a requirement for any further baseball fields or ones that are currently operating right now in the city of Warren, there has to be this kind of protective netting as a result of constructing the baseball field to prevent this from happening in the future. And any baseball fields that don't have this right now, they would have to comply with that ordinance.
In conjunction with this conversation, we'll ask a ordinance be, or zoning ordinance be amended to include for that. For
That's what I would recommend.
Whatever section of the code it goes under.
That's what I would recommend.
Okay, we'll
so
add that to
this
the-
doesn't have to be looked at again.
Ms. Moore and Mr. Watts, do you agree to add that to the motion?
Sure.
Sure.
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kapuzinski. Any additional? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item.
Next item is 12E, the issue that was brought up by the couple that had the dog that was killed.
Mr. President,
Mr. Lafferty.
I make a motion to request to the City Attorney's Office to provide suggested improvements to all relevant ordinances in protecting residents from animals of any kind, property maintenance regulations related to fencing, and policies regarding enforcement following an attack by an animal, provide immediate relief to the victim of an attack and seizure of an animal following an attack. Suggestions for strengthening the ordinances should follow best practices and standards set forth by relevant animal authorities.
Any additional? Is there support?
I'll support. Go ahead, Gary.
And
Support by
discussion.
Watts. Discussion.
Thank you.
You still have the floor.
Thank you. To Ms. Domenic, thank you for coming up here tonight to discuss this subject. Ms. Domenic and I have had many discussions over the last several days. It's been a heartbreaking incident that affected her entire family. We share the same beloved pet name for our dogs. Her dog that was attacked and killed was named Buttercup, so it hit home. It's an animal in a home is not property. It's not just a stuffed animal. It's a member of the family. It's someone you care for and you take care of, and it's a companion for life. And dogs and likely cats, I'm allergic to cats, but they leave their paw prints on your hearts forever. And I can't imagine that this family's going through, and I don't want to see this repeated. We have to do a better job at protecting our residents and anybody that is traversing our neighborhoods to make sure that our fences are secure, our gates are secure, and that if there is an attack, that we have the measures in place to stop it from happening again. So my motion is will likely require some research, making sure that we are taking into account all of the relevant ordinances, policies, working with the police department, the Animal Welfare Commission, involving maybe someone from the court system to assist us in crafting working and enforceable ordinances that can protect people like the Domenic family. So would appreciate all support from council on this effort. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Ms. Moore?
I think we should also consider the fact that there are ordinances in place, and perhaps they're not being enforced. So maybe we could, have someone look at that and specifically this situation, what wasn't addressed, because it seems to me, that's why it's important. I would say anybody that comes into contact with a vicious dog situation, that they make a report so that there's a record, so people know what they're dealing with, so that there's a history, because we don't want to see a pattern, and that's where we get into problems, that repeated attacks. And so I would add that also, that maybe we can get a little report on what just happened.
I'll accept that amendment.
I'm going to reach out to the Michigan Humane Society and talk to their legal counsel. As opposed to being breed specific, we left it general because it's not really definable. So we'll address that as well. There's, excuse me, in my day job in insurance, just for the residents, if a homeowner has a dog and it bites something, their homeowner's insurance will tell them to get rid of the dog. Or they're not insurable. So if an action is taken in court for the loss of your dog, and that goes to their homeowners, they will tell them to get rid of the dog, by whatever means. So that's another avenue.
Mr. President?
Ms. Rogency.
I just wanted to invite the family. I sit on the Animal Welfare Commission.
Yeah.
Both the city attorney as well as a number of folks that are supportive of animals meet monthly and do much of the work of trying to advance animal welfare in the city and issues like this. And they work regularly with animal control and a variety of other folks. So it's on the first Mondays of the month at 7 p.m. at the community center. I'm happy to give you the information if you'd like to attend.
Mr. President?
Thank you, Ms. Rogency. Mr. Kaczynski.
I wasn't able to ask questions during audience, so I have a couple of questions. Number one, did animal control get dispatched to this incident when it occurred, and was there a report taken, number one? And number two, could it be done as a matter of ordinance in order to get your license for your pet, the main area or the main domicile where the pet is going to be at, that as a part of the licensing of the pet, if it's going to be in the backyard and allowed to roam free without a leash, could it also be an inspection of the fenced-in yard to make sure that it would be in compliance with whatever standards that could be made up as a matter of ordinance, to where that pet was going to be unleashed and roaming through the yard, that the yard was secured to where the pet would not be able to get loose like this?
That's beyond my scope. We need to get someone who has specific knowledge in animals in residential areas to address that. But yeah, that's definitely something we can look at, whether it's even enforceable to dictate what type of fencing someone has to have with a dog of a certain size or a certain proclivity to jump fences or go under fences. That's where how many different things can you do? You want an ordinance to be general enough that it can be enforced, but not so specific that there is a contrary situation.
The reason I'm bringing that up is because we are very specific about the chicken ordinance, about what they have to inspect the pen, they have to inspect the area to make sure it's not going to be a rodent harbinger situation. They need to check on the welfare of the chicken to make sure that their living area is going to be okay for them. So I'm wondering, why couldn't the same be done for the dog, and if it's allowed to be roaming loose in the yard? I don't know what it's called. It's the thing that it's like diamond and you screw it into is that what it's called? Okay. So that item, if it's not going to be on a leash in the yard and it's roaming free, that the animal control as a part of the pet being licensed at that domicile, that they could make sure that the yard is secured enough for the pet to be loose in that yard.
Makes sense.
That, I mean,
No, it makes perfect sense.
that would be something that they could do as a part of the licensing, correct?
Should be. But I believe that they said this dog wasn't licensed. So it's outside the scope.
They were issued a warning on the first attack. She still doesn't have a license. She got 3 tickets on the first attack.
Motion to suspend the rules,
Yep.
please.
Motion to suspend the rules to allow to Ms. Domeniuk to come back up to the mic.
Please.
I'm sorry, if I can continue.
Yeah, no.
Let's vote first.
All in favor to suspend the rules?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Rules are suspended.
As far as I understand, I have both police reports, one from the first attack and ours. And from the first attack, she was just issued a warning for dog at large, and she had no license. And from what I understand from the animal control officer on our attack, she got a ticket for no license plus 2 other tickets. And in reference to, yes, the animal control did come out, but he said there was nothing that they could do. The animal was going to be in quarantine at their house for 10 days, so I warned everybody in the neighborhood. So I'm really grateful you guys are actually doing this, because we have been suffering horribly, just unbelievable. And to have my 15-year-old watch it. But yes, as far as I know, she still didn't have a license. She's only been there almost a year at that house. And she's had 2 attacks. And before the first attack, I know the lady now because she introduced herself to me. Before that first attack, the dog ran out to attack her dog, but she picked it up. It's a little Yorkie. And then it attacked it again. So and that's why I think you were saying it, that if, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to save it all, from this happening all the time or certain times, obviously, because if someone doesn't license their dog, then you guys don't even know it's there. So, but so anyway, my issue was on the first attack, something should have been checked on her property, like you said, insurance. And it's funny because actually a lady I laughed when you said the chickens, because a lady sent me a message in next door and she said, "Isn't this funny that our city cares more about the chickens than they do our dogs?"
You're just making my argument, regulation over a chicken than we do dogs.
Right.
I mean, that's completely asinine.
It is asinine. It's asinine for an animal control, horribly. And he said, there's nothing I can do. The dog will stay in the house for 10 days quarantine, and then the court decides if the dog gets to stay at the house after that. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So I fought for 5 days with the mayor. I finally copied and pasted everybody's responses to me in our neighborhood. They're like, we're just going to carry clubs. It's just like, okay, go ahead, Mace. One guy said, he said CPL owners should walk by the house with their dog, basically to test it. And then he said, I'd like to see that stroll on the news. I mean, this is how the city is talking.
So,
I got messages all the time from people saying this stuff. Yeah, so I then was going to fill out, I did fill out the Dangerous Animal Act forms, because since nobody was doing anything, I was going to take it in my own hands and do it myself. So it started with 5 days with the mayor, and Jonathan Lafferty was truthfully amazing. Him and I were corresponding for days on end, emails. I was emailing, I'm not going to let my dog die in vain, and I was not going to let a toddler get killed, and I was not going to let another dog get killed. If I had to take care of it, that's what I'm going to do. So the mayor finally called me and said, okay, I finally got an emergency court order based on your emails and everybody's responses. Great, thank you, God. And then he goes, but she can maybe have it back. Yeah, okay. And then I thought, okay, get the dangerous, everybody was helping me. Dangerous Animal Act, I was filling out those forms. And then I got a call, then Jonathan, I'd be like, here I am again, Jonathan. Here I am, Mayor. I didn't care. And then after that, what happened? Then it was, well, she can get it back. So I was going through that. It was insane. And then now I'm dealing with obviously taking her to court to get paid for my dead dog and everything else. And she just had to go to court for the other attack. And now the son is probably going to take her to court for biting him. I mean, this is nuts.
It is.
This is absolutely insanity.
All right, well,
I should not have fought.
we're gonna take this to task, and it's not working. The ordinance that's on the books right now is not working
Yeah.
as it's intended to. Whether it's the language or whether it's the execution of it, we're gonna have to find out.
Mr. President?
Yeah, and I don't blame the police or animal control at all, because they said it was out of their hands. It's coming from wherever, and I don't know where that wherever is. State, city, I have no idea. They just said our hands are tied. We cannot take the dog away. But other cities are. I've talked to a Madison Heights police officer in my neighborhood. He just retired. He said, Jill, that dog would have been out that day.
That's what I understand, and that's what's very confusing here.
And Birmingham, another lady said,
Everywhere.
my husky jumped the fence, killed a dog. We had to euthanize my 3-year-old husky.
Yeah.
So it's happening in different cities, and, you know, I had to like fight to get this dog out to save other dogs or other kids. So it wasn't my job, but I took
Mr.
it on.
President, I know we have a certification right now for the police department, or the accreditation. I'm wondering if the animal control officers have the same accreditation as they have the ASPCA accreditation that is done with most animal control or humane law enforcement, and if maybe that accreditation might be helpful in dealing with future incidents like this.
We're going to have to go back and look at the ordinance. And
As far as training, because-
Exactly, that would be policy for the police department, but we're going to have to go back and look at the ordinance to see why it's not working. Okay, call the question. Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Ms. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Papandreou?
Yes.
Ms. Rogency?
Yes.
Green votes yes. Item passed 7-0. Thank you. We'll get to the bottom of it. Watts. How's that, does anybody know how that's going?
So.
We haven't got any updates from them, as far as I know.
Not either. The city attorney that was working on it is no longer allowed to work on it.
Okay.
The building inspector, who was the residents' largest champion, was removed from working with them. My understanding, I FOIA'd, because we have to FOIA documents in the city that are our own. All of the communication from the city attorney and anything related to Landmark Estates, which I have not digested. It's probably 100 pages of documentation. Additionally, what Mr. Denmark shared last meeting. So it was voted to file a court case for public nuisance. My understanding is it was settled privately. Mr. Watts, or not privately, with the city attorney's office, and never went to court. I don't know what the stipulations of that settlement are. I do know a number of buildings that have made progress, so they've made some progress in tearing down units and removing blight and some of the things that were challenging, but I do know that there are still a number of issues happening. It's just difficult to know because the people who are advocating for those residents and the issues there are no longer